At my sister's wedding, her MIL pointed and proclaimed, "You can stand by the trash. We're out of seats." I surveyed the room and found even her cat got a spot. So I grabbed my gift, smiled, and declared, "Fitting, since that's where this marriage belongs." She came rushing as I proceeded. I, 29M, never thought my sister's wedding would turn into the most satisfying moment of revenge in my entire life. But here we are. The whole thing started 6 months ago when my sister got engaged to this guy whose mother apparently thinks she's royalty. My sister had been dating him for 2 years, and honestly, he seemed decent enough. The problem was his mother, a woman who treated everyone like they were beneath her designer heels. From the moment my sister announced the engagement, this woman made it clear that our family wasn't good enough for her precious son. She questioned everything: our jobs, our house, even the way we dressed. My sister kept making excuses for her, saying she was just protective and would warm up eventually. The wedding planning was a nightmare. Every suggestion my family made was shot down. The mother-in-law insisted on the most expensive venue in town, demanded specific flowers that cost a fortune, and even tried to control the guest list. My parents, being the gracious people they are, went along with most of it because they wanted my sister to be happy. 3 weeks before the wedding, I received my invitation. I was shocked to see that my +1 had been removed without discussion. When I asked my sister about it, she looked embarrassed and explained that her future mother-in-law had decided there wasn't enough space for everyone to bring dates. I found this odd since the venue was massive, but I let it slide. The morning of the wedding arrived, and I spent considerable time getting ready. I bought a new suit, got a fresh haircut, and picked out what I thought was the perfect wedding gift, a beautiful crystal vase that had cost me nearly $300. I was actually looking forward to celebrating my sister's big day. I arrived at the venue 30 minutes before the ceremony was supposed to start. The place was decorated beautifully, with white roses and gold accents everywhere. Guests were already filling up the seats, and I could see the mother-in-law directing people like she was conducting an orchestra. I walked toward the seating area, carrying my gift, when she spotted me. She marched over with this expression that could have frozen hell itself. Without any greeting or acknowledgement, she pointed toward a corner near the back of the venue and made her announcement about me standing by the trash since they were out of seats. I stood there for a moment, processing what had just happened. I looked around the room, counting the empty chairs I could see. There had to be at least 15 vacant seats scattered throughout the venue. Then my eyes landed on something that made my blood boil. In the third row, there was an actual pet carrier with the mother-in-law's cat sitting inside, complete with a little bow tie and its own reserved seat marker. The cat had a better seat than me at my own sister's wedding. That was the moment something snapped inside me. I looked at this woman who had spent months treating my family like dirt, who had made my sister's engagement about her own ego, and who was now publicly humiliating me in front of everyone. I decided right then that I wasn't going to take it anymore. I smiled at her, picked up my expensive gift, and made my declaration about the trash being fitting since that's where the marriage belonged. The words came out louder than I had intended, and I could see heads turning throughout the venue. The mother-in-law's face went through about 5 different shades of red. She started rushing toward me, probably to cause an even bigger scene, but I was already walking toward the exit. I could hear murmurs spreading through the crowd behind me. I got in my car and sat there for a few minutes, trying to process what I had just done. Part of me felt guilty for potentially ruining my sister's day, but another part felt incredibly satisfied. I had finally stood up to this woman who had been terrorizing my family for months. My phone started buzzing immediately, text after text from various family members who had witnessed the scene. My cousin said the mother-in-law had completely lost it after I left, yelling at the wedding planner and demanding they find me and force me to apologize. My uncle texted that several other guests were now questioning the seating arrangements and pointing out all the empty chairs. The ceremony proceeded, but according to my cousin, the mother-in-law spent the entire time looking agitated and distracted. She kept glancing toward the exit like she expected me to come back and cause more trouble. During the reception, things got even more interesting. My uncle called me to give me updates since he knew I would want to know how everything played out. He told me that other family members had started asking questions about the seating situation. When people realized that the cat had its own reserved seat while the bride's brother was told to stand by the trash, the story spread like wildfire. My sister's new husband apparently had no idea what his mother had done. When he found out, He was reportedly furious. He spent a good portion of his wedding reception arguing with his mother about her behavior. Several guests came up to him asking where I was, saying they wanted to congratulate me for finally calling out the obvious favoritism. The mother-in-law tried to control the narrative, telling people that I had been disrespectful and inappropriate, but too many witnesses had seen what really happened. The story of the cat getting better treatment than the bride's brother became the talk of the entire reception. Around 9 that evening, my sister called me. She was crying, and at first, I thought she was angry about what I had done. Instead, she apologized. She said she had been so focused on keeping the peace and avoiding conflict that she hadn't realized how badly her future mother-in-law had been treating our family. She was embarrassed that she had let things get so bad that I felt compelled to make such a dramatic statement. She told me that her new husband had spent the evening apologizing to various family members and promising that his mother's behavior would never be tolerated again. He had apparently given his mother an ultimatum. She could either treat his wife's family with respect, or she could find herself excluded from future family events. The fallout continued for weeks after the wedding. My sister's husband kept his word about setting boundaries with his mother. When she tried to plan their first holiday dinner and attempted to exclude our side of the family, he shut it down immediately. He told her that if she wanted to see them for holidays, she needed to include everyone and treat everyone equally. The mother-in-law tried various tactics to get back into control. She played the victim, claiming I had humiliated her at her son's wedding. She tried to turn other family members against me by spreading stories about how disrespectful and inappropriate I had been. But too many people had witnessed what really happened, and her version of events didn't match what everyone had seen. My sister and her husband started hosting their own family gatherings, making sure that both sides of the family were included and treated equally. The mother-in-law was invited to these events, but she was given clear expectations about her behavior. If she couldn't handle being around our family without making snide comments or creating drama, she was free to stay home. About 2 months after the wedding, I received an unexpected phone call from my sister's husband. He wanted to apologize personally for his mother's behavior and thank me for standing up for our family. He said that my dramatic exit had been a wake-up call for him about just how toxic his mother's behavior had become. He had been so used to her controlling nature that he hadn't recognized how inappropriate and hurtful her actions were toward people outside their immediate family. He also told me something that made the whole situation even more satisfying. His mother had been bragging to her friends about how she had put the bride's family in their place at the wedding. She had been telling people about how she had made me stand by the trash because there weren't enough seats. One of her friends had asked her about the cat having its own seat, and she had brushed it off as a necessary accommodation for her precious pet. When this story got back to other members of the groom's extended family, they were horrified. Several of his aunts and uncles called him to express their disgust at his mother's behavior. They couldn't believe that she had publicly humiliated the bride's brother while giving preferential treatment to a cat. The story had become a scandal within their own family circles. Update 1. 3 months after the wedding, the mother-in-law made one last attempt to reassert her dominance. She planned a surprise birthday party for her son without consulting my sister or including our family in the planning. When my sister found out about the party the day before, she was understandably upset that she had been excluded from planning her own husband's birthday celebration. My sister's husband was furious when he discovered what his mother had done. He canceled the entire party and told his mother that if she couldn't include his wife in planning family events, then she wouldn't be planning any events at all. Instead, he and my sister planned their own celebration and invited everyone, including his mother, but making it clear that she was a guest, not the host. The mother-in-law showed up to the birthday party with a sour attitude, clearly upset that she wasn't in control of the event. She made several passive-aggressive comments throughout the evening, but every time she started to cross a line, her son would shut her down immediately. At one point during the party, she made a comment about how the original party she had planned would have been much more elegant and appropriate. My sister's husband responded by reminding everyone about the wedding seating incident and how his mother's idea of appropriate had included giving his cat better treatment than his brother-in-law. The comment effectively ended any remaining support the mother-in-law had from other family members. Even her own relatives started distancing themselves from her behavior. Update 2. 6 months after the wedding, my sister announced she was pregnant. This should have been a joyous occasion for everyone. But of course, the mother-in-law tried to make it about herself and her control issues. She immediately started making demands about the baby, what the nursery should look like, what the name should be, even what kind of stroller they should buy. She acted like she was going to be the primary caregiver and decision-maker for this child. My sister and her husband had learned their lesson from the wedding experience. They set clear boundaries from the beginning. They told her that while they appreciated her excitement about becoming a grandmother, all major decisions about the baby would be made by the parents alone. When she tried to throw another surprise event, this time a baby shower without consulting my sister, they shut it down before it could happen. They planned their own baby shower and invited everyone equally, making sure that both grandmothers had equal input and involvement. The mother-in-law tried to play the victim again, claiming that she was being excluded from her grandchild's life before the baby was even born. But by this point, everyone in both families had seen enough of her manipulative behavior to recognize it for what it was. My sister's husband had a final conversation with his mother where he explained that her behavior had consequences. If she wanted to be part of their lives and their child's life, she needed to treat everyone with respect and stop trying to control every situation. If she couldn't do that, she would find herself with very limited access to her son's family. The ultimatum worked. The mother-in-law finally seemed to understand that her son was serious about the boundaries they had set. She started making genuine efforts to be more respectful and inclusive, though it was clearly a struggle for her. Update 3. A year after the wedding, my sister and her husband renewed their wedding vows in a small, intimate ceremony with just close family and friends. This time, everyone was treated equally, and there were no seating charts, no cat carriers, and no drama. The mother-in-law attended the ceremony and was polite and respectful throughout the entire event. She seemed to have finally learned that her controlling behavior would not be tolerated. During the reception, she actually approached me and offered what could generously be called an apology. She said she realized that her behavior at the original wedding had been inappropriate and that she was sorry for how she had treated me and my family. It wasn't the most heartfelt apology I had ever received, but it was progress. My sister pulled me aside during the reception and thanked me again for standing up to her mother-in-law at the original wedding. She said that my dramatic exit had been the catalyst for all the positive changes in their family dynamic. If I hadn't forced the issue by refusing to accept the disrespectful treatment, they might have continued enabling her behavior indefinitely. Looking back on the whole experience, I don't regret my decision to walk out of that wedding. Sometimes dramatic action is necessary to force people to confront behavior that has gotten completely out of control. The mother-in-law needed to understand that treating people poorly would have consequences, and my public rejection of her treatment was exactly the wake-up call she needed. The best part of the whole situation was discovering that standing up for yourself doesn't have to involve yelling or aggression. Sometimes the most powerful response is a calm, measured statement followed by walking away with your dignity intact. My declaration about the trash and the marriage might have been dramatic, but it was also truthful and effective. My sister's marriage survived and actually became stronger because they learned to set appropriate boundaries with toxic family members. Their relationship with the mother-in-law improved because she finally understood that respect is a requirement, not an option. And that expensive crystal vase I had bought as a wedding gift? I kept it for myself and use it to hold flowers in my apartment. Every time I look at it, I'm reminded that sometimes the best gift you can give someone is the courage to stand up for what's right, even when it's uncomfortable and dramatic. The whole experience taught me that family dynamics don't have to remain toxic just because that's how they've always been. Sometimes one person needs to be willing to disrupt the pattern and force everyone to confront the dysfunction. In this case, that person was me, and I'm proud of the role I played in creating positive change for my sister's family.